of social media speech stating that we're saying we expect more from our technology companies. We're asking them to monitor misinformation more closely. We're asking them to consistently take action against misinformation superspreaders on their platforms. He also stated that technology companies have a particularly important role to play in combating misinformation. He stated, "We know that the dramatic increase in the speed and scale of spreading information has, in part, been enabled by these platforms. So that's why in this advisory today, we're asking them to step up. We know they have taken some steps to address misinformation, but much, much more has to be done. And we can't wait any longer for them to take aggressive action because it's costing people's lives." When you listen to these people, they all sound like they're reading from the same playbook. If I read this out and told you this was Prince Harry or Meghan quoting this, you would believe it because this is something that they have been saying. I mean, literally verbatim. It's costing people their lives. Oh, wait, excuse me, children's lives, according to Meghan, because she is this caring so-called mother. Bullet number 246, example of government overreach. Media reports aptly describe Murthy as demanding information about the major sources of COVID-19 misinformation by May 2nd, 2022. Brad Dress, Surgeon General, demands data on COVID-19 misinformation from major tech firms, according to The Hill. In a formal notice, Murthy requested major tech platforms submit information about the prevalence and scale of COVID-19 misinformation on their sites, from social networks, search engines, crowdsourced platforms, e-commerce platforms, and instant messaging systems. That's invasive. In his notice to major tech platforms, Murthy is requesting specific information on demographics affected by misinformation, as well as sources of misinformation and exactly how many users saw or may have been exposed to instances of COVID-19 misinformation. Now, do you understand why governments in the Western world are so in a hurry to get these laws put in place? Because this essentially is invading people's privacy. And with those laws, especially now with the online safety bill, the government or Ofcom division has full range of reading anything that you put on the web, anything that you search, any discussion that you have with another person. These laws are gross invasion of people's privacy rights. But the laws being passed that we've seen in the UK, in Australia, in Germany, in the European Union, free speech doesn't exist. They may fool everybody by saying they're trying to protect people's free speech, but we all know that that's garbage. The United States is the only nation that has this kind of protection, and we have to defend it at all costs. That's why this Biden versus Missouri or Murthy versus Missouri now is so important and going to the Supreme Court. So, folks, I'm keeping my eye on it, but you see the level of greed that we have going on here. The people involved who are pushing this stuff and trying to control what we're saying online. I mean, evidence clearly of bad intentions with Meghan and Harry. We've learned how these people are trying to manipulate us into thinking a certain way. And, the harm that they're causing, they themselves, is criminal, in my opinion. Here's another example, 369. As another example, on May 28, 2021, a senior executive of Meta sent an email to Slavitt and Murthy reporting that Facebook had expanded its censorship policies, evidently to satisfy federal officials' demands made at a recent oral meeting. The email stated that a key point was that we're expanding penalties for individual Facebook accounts that share misinformation. This is part of the Aspen Institute playbook. You saw it in that report where they stated that penalizing or demonetizing or putting users in holding rooms so they can't reach other people. This is Prince Harry's report. It says it right here. Super spreader accountability holds super spreaders of mis and disinformation to account with clear, transparent, and consistently applied policies that enable quicker, more decisive actions and penalties commensurate with their impacts, regardless of location or political views or role in society. We all saw in the Twitter files, the Aspen Institute internal communication was okay with taking away people's freedoms with this new framework that they were putting together that Harry was a part of. So Folks, this is the control that these new laws that are being passed in other Western countries are implementing. Now, don't get me wrong, I agree that there's a lot of danger out on the web, but I do believe that part of the responsibility in controlling this mess is parents controlling their kids. Because if these laws are so called being used to protect kids, then it's a no brainer. Like in society, when you have predators that are on there, promoting things that I can't really say on YouTube, that's a natural given for these tech companies to be monitoring and putting as priority. But when the government is using this as the front, now I have looked at that online safety bill, 255 pages worth, there's only a fraction of it that addresses keeping kids safe. The rest of it talks about whatever they deem hateful content and how to penalize the user, how to penalize the platforms. A lot of focus within this online safety bill is on Ofcom and its new set of powers. Let's face reality, it's inevitable that those powers are going to be abused. What's going to be interesting to see as we move along with these new bills being passed is how are these social media platforms going to handle this liability? We saw with WhatsApp, now I believe that they're no longer operating in the UK for the mere fact that it does pose a safety and security risk to users because they have to break encryption for the government to spy on people's conversations. We also saw in Canada, Facebook saying, nah, Canada, sorry, we don't really need your ad revenue. We're going to back out there. I think Rumble did the same thing with France, so I don't think people in France can access videos on the Rumble platform. We're going to see a lot of decentralization. Anyhow, going back to this Murthy versus Missouri lawsuit that's now being taken on by the Supreme Court is a very important one to watch because it involves the First Amendment, the federal government, and social media. Now, for all those that have been following me and seeing me cover portions of this situation, there are multiple lawsuits that are going on regarding this particular issue, but this is the main head one that has been picked up by the Supreme Court. We have the lawsuit with Renee DiResta and Alex Stamos in Louisiana. That's the lawsuit that Aspen Institute is a part of. There's also the lawsuit in Texas. I'm not sure if Aspen's been added there, but they might as well. I do think down the road, Harry and Meghan should be added to this because we have a foreign prince on U.S. soil deliberately undermining our Constitution and being a part of this censorship industrial complex. He's not registered as a foreign agent, and we have Department of Homeland Security pushing back on giving information to the American people. I think that's warranted and justified, in my opinion. These are legitimate arguments that should be taken up with the court. Anyhow, I thought that this was important to bring up, to put this on everybody's radar. As you can see now, COVID is over. There's no more money left in that. We're seeing the rise and focus of Meghan and Harry in the mental health arena and the online digital harms that it's causing, or at least seeding that idea, and using the youth as examples as to why there should be stronger regulation and clamp down and control on what people say and think to keep people safe. But we all know that that's not what they mean. They want people's data. They want to be able to push their narratives and control what you see and how you think, because that's how they're going to exploit and make money off of you. For the time being, all these people right now associated in Meghan and Harry's orbit talking about misinformation, disinformation, you cannot trust. And this guy, Vivek Murthy, who essentially has become the face of this Supreme Court case pertaining to this censorship battle that we're having and holding on to the First Amendment rights, it really is clear that birds of a feather flock together. But what do you guys think? Leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I will talk to you later. Bye. It was such a